that you just borrowed, plus interest, plus now you have to do the maintenance for that year. It's just like taking out a second mortgage to pay your utility bill. It's not a good way to finance it. I don't have any problem. It's an essential service, and I don't have any problem with us fixing the roads, obviously, but that's my problem with it. It's just, it's the match of the way the funding's being done.
Is this yes or no?
Oh, I'd say, I vote no on all.
Vote no on this, okay.
Yeah, because, well, frankly, and one of the reasons is, I want to send a message.
Right.
I mean, what Randy was just talking about, you know, the numbers that it's going to cost people in their taxes. And here's a nice brochure that was sent out to all of you. Okay, and you've heard these numbers over and over again, and people talk about them. And here we have, on page 5 it is, you'll see a number that says it's $13.88 a year. But that's not the number Randy just gave, was it? It says county bonds are not anticipated to increase by more than initial increase of $13.88 a year. So all of you know what you're going to pay now, right? No, because you have to parse the sentence. Randy's number was right. He came up with the average, which is back on page 9. This number refers to how much it's going to be more than it was last year, without disclosing that that number will continue to go down each year if you don't pass these bonds. And I don't like that, okay? That's me. I don't like the way it's being presented. I think there's one number, it's the number Randy used, it's the number that the statute requires. So that's another one of the reasons why I'm voting no on all of them, frankly.
Larry, what's the number?
There will be an approximately $18 a year increase in your secondary property tax.
And that was the third number then.
Additional, okay,
Okay.
additional taxes.
Okay.
Nobody's saying that's what it's going to cost.
And they will, and it will be more than that each year thereafter, because that secondary property tax would go down each year. So it's $18
So
the first year.
if we didn't bond for our future, if we didn't invest in our future, we would have to pay nothing at some point in time. But the fact is, the way we finance these kind of projects, these kind of improvements, is through bonding. Historically, that's the way it is. There isn't a park in this county that wasn't built with some form of debt. Libraries. That's how you finance long-term capital improvements. And Gary, the analogy about borrowing money to pay your electric bill just doesn't work, because the monies for the roads are going to be used to repair and fix our road system. They're going to have a useful life that extends beyond the life of the bonds. That's not potholes.
But Larry, $200 million is not going to solve our roads problems, is that right?
Absolutely not.
I believe Sahuarita would get about $4 million. That's about 10 feet of road.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
Then why is this a good start? Why is this something we should back?
Because it's a start, because we can't wait any longer. And is this the best way to do it? No, no. I served on the State Transportation Board for 4 years, and I have a good understanding of how you finance road improvements. You use gas tax. Well, guess what? It's been decades since we've increased our gas tax or sales tax. We're not going to see a sales tax in this county. So we have to find something. We can't let our roads continue to deteriorate and fall apart, because it's only going to get worse. It's one of those things that if you don't fix it now, the deterioration is going to accelerate and get worse and worse and worse.
Okay, now you say this isn't the best way to finance roads, but this $200 million was not part of the original package that the Bond Advisory Committee put together. It was kind of thrown on at the last minute. Did it go before the whole committee for discussion, not for a vote, for discussion?
Toward the very end of our most recent process that took over 2 years, it was brought forward to the committee, and the committee did not. Had been reviewing individual projects, and the feeling was that this was not something that was within the purview of the bond committee, and that it would be best resolved at the Board of Supervisors level, which is where it was ultimately included. It was essential. I don't think there was a person on the bond committee who would disagree that our roads are in terrible shape. But this was not something that we had been viewing.
Would it be accurate to say the county administrator pushed this real hard, and it's on there because of him?
No, I would say that there was an outpouring of support from the business community, the Tucson Chamber of Commerce, various business organizations, neighborhood organizations, went to the Board of Supervisors and said, please do something about our roads. This wasn't Mr. Huckleberry. This was the community telling the Board of Supervisors that something had to be done, and it had to be done as soon as possible.
You said that you wanted to make sure that the package was economically viable. I'm assuming that you're talking about the original $600 million package. Do you think adding 30% to that with $200 million kept it economically viable, or do you think this is pushing it out to a point where people are going to have second thoughts?
Well, I believe that it's economically viable because the Board of Supervisors has set a cap, a ceiling, on the secondary property tax rate. The board will not issue bonds if the secondary property tax would go over 81.5 cents per $100 valuation.
But it could. They said they won't, but they could. Is that accurate?
Oh, I can't, I mean, I would think that if the Board of Supervisors...
No, that's a yes or a no. Could
Well,
they?
Theoretically, they could, yes. Will they? No.
Randy, Green Valley voters might be approaching this bond vote a little differently because a lot of people here aren't working and income can be an issue for some of us, especially with the rising cost of just about everything. Do you think that's going to influence how people vote in this community? Are we a different animal than the rest of Pima County?
I believe we could be to a certain extent. I mean, you've got two other things going on here in the Green Valley-Sahuarita community. Obviously, the Continental School District has their override going, which is not a tax increase. The Continental School District is looking at continuing the override they have in place. In Sahuarita, however, the Sahuarita School District, they have I believe it's a $40 million bond package on the ballot, which will be competing with these. And yes, when people are on fixed income, living in a county that has the highest tax rate in the state, we've had a 28% increase in our property tax rate in the last 3 years by the county. Last year, the county was looking at closing down a few libraries because the library tax was not collecting enough money to maintain the current libraries, yet they've got construction of some new libraries in here, which will increase maintenance and operation costs. So you can expect increases in the library tax on your property tax bill in the future. Also, we're competing with, you got the Green Valley Fire District, Pima Community College, a number of other taxing jurisdictions on your bill. So I think when you take all this into consideration, people here, particularly on fixed incomes, when they continue to see their property taxes increase, is something that they've got to be aware of. And if I can just touch very briefly on talking about the finance of these bonds. Last year, assessed valuation countywide in Pima County went up about $40 million. It went from roughly $7.8 billion to up about $40 million. They are projecting increases. Now, statutorily, there are some limits on how much they can put in here as far as increased property valuations. And increased property valuations is what it'll take to keep tax rates being able to pay these things off. The county is projecting nearly over a 3% increase in assessed valuations for the next 27 years, when it went up less than about 0.5% this past year. So if those property valuations countywide do not go up at that 3% rate, I'm not sure that they will have the resources to pay these bonds back, which means they probably might not be able to sell some of the bonds, particularly in the outer years. So just something else that I think everybody has to be aware of.
And can I just jump in on two comments on that? One, if those property values go down again, and we've all seen that, and these bonds are all sold, you can forget that 81-cent cap because they've got to pay them back. So that means they've got to assess you. So don't think that's the board went through and that's a board implemented cap and good for them, but don't think it's in stone anywhere. The second thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned Green Valley and what's going on here. Countywide, there's the people that have mortgages on their homes, and this may not be a Green Valley issue, 20% of them are still underwater. So look what we're doing to their affordability. They're already by definition, struggling to pay the taxes and the other expenses on their home. And that 20% is also going to get the increase from this.
Dan, there's a lot of bad information going around here.
Go ahead.
And first, let me just say, property values have increased by at least 3%, and it's projected that they will continue to increase. But state statute requires that after 5 years, the assumption has to be a 1%, less than 1% increase in property value. So it's not assuming that there's going to be a 3% increase in property values over the next 27 years. Secondly, approving these bonds doesn't mean that the county's going to go out and issue $815 million worth of bonds. They will issue bonds as the projects are ready to go. That's when they'll determine the cap. At that point, they'll know what the interest rate is, and they'll know whether they can issue that bond without going over the 81.5-cent cap. So the bonds will not be sold. The debt will not be incurred if it would increase property tax over 81.5 cents per $100 valuation. That's the fact.
This is a 27-year payback period and a 12-year borrowing period. Here's the schedule, and it shows going out to year 12. So the borrowing, it may not happen in year 10, they may put a whole stop to it, or it may all be done in year 12. And then in year 13, all the debt is still being paid. So the idea that everything can be stopped isn't quite right. It goes at they're borrowing for 12 years and you're paying back over 27. And here's the schedule. I didn't, these are not my numbers.
Okay, Gary, you say that we can't afford this. Some people say we can't afford not to pass this. Now, I'm all for sending messages, but at some point you have to maintain what you already own, and a lot of this bond goes for maintaining what we already own. Why would you say no to that?
Sure, and like I say, what I could sit here today and very quickly put together a $350 million to $400 million bond package that would allow secondary property taxes to continue to go down. And that would fund, in a better way, all of the parts that are in there with moving one project, the libraries and community centers, which I think are very important, and are essential government services. The purpose of the bonds is really not to do maintenance. The purpose of the bonds, as we've always discussed, you're borrowing long-term, is to do capital improvements. And I understand how the roads got in here, and frankly, I understand Randy's organization getting behind it. And it's not the thing that fundamentally keeps me up most about this package, because at least you will get something of a fundamental government service, unlike some of the other projects.
Here's a message, Gary, that we're going to send if we don't pass these bonds. We're going to send a message to our major employers, Raytheon and IBM, and to our young people, that we don't care about our future, that we don't want to invest in the needs of our children and our grandchildren. That's the message that we're going to send, and guess how long they'll stay around? They won't. We're exporting talent. Kids are leaving already because they don't see a future in Pima County because we're not taking care of what we have and we're not providing for the growth. We're going to grow 11% in the next 10 years.
This same leadership has been in charge for 15 years, and we are losing young people. Our fundamental parts of our community are falling apart, and now they're saying, look, if you had a mechanic working on your car for 15 years, and your car kept breaking down the expressway, I don't think the solution is when he comes to you in year 15 and says, give me another $10,000 and I'll make it run. I don't think sending a message to the young people or employers of a package that does all sorts of things that I don't think have anything to do with our essential fundamental government services for our local government sends any kind of positive message.
But Gary, if that were correct, every major business organization in Pima County wouldn't be supporting these bonds. The Chambers of Commerce, the leadership organizations, they would not be supporting this, and they are. There's a tremendous coalition of organizations that's supporting this right now.